Welcome to Speaking History, where the past isn't just a story. It's a warning, a mystery, and sometimes a nightmare. Today, we're stepping into the shadows of power to uncover 5 queens whose reigns rewrote history in blood. From fiery inquisitions to ruthless revenge, these women didn't just wear crowns, they wielded them like weapons. What drove them to extremes? Was it ambition, fear, or a desperate bid to survive in a world ruled by men? We'll dissect the shocking tactics of Mary I, Isabella I, Ranavalona I, Olga of Kiev, and Empress Irene, women who shattered expectations but left trails of controversy. Strap in, because this isn't your grandmother's history lesson. By the end, you'll question everything you thought you knew about power, legacy, and the dark price of ruling a kingdom. Don't touch that screen. The past is about to get personal. Queen Mary I, 1516 to 1558. The Bloody Queen. First on our list is a woman whose name still chills the spine of England, Mary Tudor, better known as Bloody Mary. But was she truly a monster, or a product of her time? Let's unravel the story of the first Queen of England to rule in her own right, and the trail of fire she left behind. Born to King Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon, Mary's life was shattered by her father's obsession for a male heir. When Henry broke from the Catholic Church to divorce her mother, Mary was declared illegitimate, stripped of her title, and forced to serve her infant half-sister, Elizabeth. This humiliation forged her into a woman of iron will and simmering rage. But why the bloodshed? When Mary finally seized the throne in 1553, she vowed to undo England's Protestant Reformation. To her, Catholicism wasn't just a faith, it was her mother's legacy, her identity, and England's only path to salvation. But salvation came at a horrifying cost. Over 5 years, Mary ordered the execution of nearly 280 Protestants, bishops, farmers, even teenagers, accused of heresy. They were burned alive in public spectacles, a brutal warning to those who defied the crown and church. The most infamous victim, Archbishop Thomas Cranmer, who had annulled her parents' marriage. Forced to watch his friends burn first, Cranmer recanted. But Mary showed no mercy. His hand, which had signed the recantation, was held to the flames as punishment. Was this pure cruelty or desperation? Mary's marriage to Philip II of Spain turned England into a battleground. Fearing Protestant rebellions, she doubled down on terror. But beneath the crown was a broken woman, plagued by phantom pregnancies, abandoned by Philip, and haunted by the ghosts of her traumatized past. Her brutality wasn't just about faith. It was about control in a world that had stripped her of power, family, and dignity. By 1558, England rejoiced at her death. But Bloody Mary's legacy lingers, a cautionary tale of how fear, trauma, and blind conviction can twist even the most devout ruler into a tyrant. Next up, a queen who unleashed hell in the name of God, Isabella of Castile. Queen Isabella I of Castile, 1451 to 1504, the Catholic Queen and the Cost of Empire. Next, we meet a queen who shaped the fate of continents, Isabella of Castile. Revered as the mother of Spain and condemned as the architect of terror, Isabella's reign was a paradox of piety and brutality. How did a devout queen who funded Columbus's voyage to the New World also unleash one of history's darkest chapters? Let's decode the enigma. Isabella's rise was straight out of a medieval drama. At 18, she defied her half-brother, King Henry IV, to claim the throne of Castile. Her marriage to Ferdinand of Aragon united Spain's 2 most powerful kingdoms, but their motto, tanto monta, they are equal, hid a ruthless ambition. Together, they vowed to create a pure Catholic empire, no matter the cost. In 1478, Isabella petitioned the Pope to launch the Spanish Inquisition, a campaign to root out heresy. But this wasn't just about religion. It was about power. Thousands of Jews and Muslims who'd converted to Christianity, conversos and moriscos, were accused of secretly practicing their old faith. Tortured into confession, over 2,000 were burned alive in autos da fe, acts of faith. Their crime, suspicion, their wealth, confiscated by the crown. Yet Isabella saw herself as a savior, not a tyrant. To her, the Inquisition was a holy purge to save souls and unify Spain. But her zeal didn't stop there. In 1492, Isabella bankrolled Columbus's voyage, unknowingly igniting centuries of colonial violence. That same year, she issued the Alhambra Decree, expelling all Jews who refused baptism. Over 40,000 families fled, tearing apart Spain's social fabric. The reason? To purify the realm and fill royal coffers with their abandoned property. But was Isabella purely evil? Here's the twist. She reformed Spain's legal system, championed women's rights, and funded the arts. She personally opposed enslaving indigenous peoples, initially, though her policies later enabled atrocities. Her faith was genuine, but it collided with a hunger for absolute control. Isabella died in 1504, believing she'd saved Spain's soul. Instead, she left a legacy of religious trauma, colonial exploitation, and a question that haunts history. Can greatness ever justify cruelty? Up next, a queen whose reign was so brutal, it's been called Madagascar's reign of terror, Ranavalona I. Queen Ranavalona I, 1778 to 1861. The tyrant who defied the world. Imagine a queen so ruthless, her reign turned an island paradise into a kingdom of nightmares. Meet Ranavalona I of Madagascar. A ruler so feared, Europeans called her the female Caligula. But was she a mad tyrant? Or a warrior queen fighting to save her culture from annihilation? Let's journey into the heart of her controversial rule. Ranavalona wasn't born to power. She seized it. In 1828, after her husband King Ranavalona I died, she massacred rivals, abolished the royal succession, and declared herself sole ruler. Her mission? To purge Madagascar of foreign influence, Christian missionaries, European traders, and even ideas. To root out dissent, Ranavalona revived the Tangina ordeal. Suspects were forced to eat poisoned chicken skins. If they vomited, they were innocent. If they died, guilty. Thousands perished, including her own people. But this wasn't random cruelty. It was a calculated purge. She saw foreign religions and treaties as threats to Malagasy sovereignty. I will rule here over the stones and rocks until I die. Ranavalona banned Christianity, expelled missionaries, and executed converts. When a group of Christians refused to renounce their faith, she ordered them thrown off cliffs. Yet to her, this was self-defense. Europe's empires were circling Africa, and she believed only terror could keep Madagascar free. Her reign plunged Madagascar into darkness. Forced labor projects, like building her palace at Antananarivo, killed over 50,000. Trade collapsed. Villages starved. By her death in 1861, Madagascar's population had halved. But here's the twist. Her brutality worked. Unlike much of Africa, Madagascar remained independent until 1895, 34 years after her death. Critics call her a paranoid despot. Defenders argue she was a proto-nationalist who used fear to shield her culture. Even her infamous quote, "I will never accept the cross nor the Quran," reveals her ironclad resolve. But at what cost? Next, we'll meet a queen who turned revenge into an art form. Olga of Kiev. Olga of Kiev, circa 890 to 969 AD. The vengeful saint. From the ashes of betrayal rose a queen who rewrote the rules of revenge. Meet Olga of Kiev, a pagan ruler turned Christian saint, a mother turned merciless tactician. Her story is a paradox. A woman celebrated as a saint in the Orthodox Church, yet remembered for one of history's most chilling acts of retribution. How did she earn both titles? Let's unravel the legend. Olga's tale begins with tragedy. In 945 AD, her husband, Prince Igor, was murdered by the Drevlians, a Slavic tribe tired of his oppressive tribute demands. They sent her a message, "Marry our prince or die." But Olga didn't weep, she plotted. The Drevlians sent 20 diplomats to negotiate her marriage. Olga greeted them warmly. "You are honored guests. Rest in your boat tonight." By morning, the boat was buried alive in a trench she'd secretly ordered dug. Her message? "This is how I honor traitors." Next, she invited the Drevlians' nobles to a funeral feast for Igor. As they drank, her soldiers set the hall ablaze. Hundreds burned alive. But Olga wasn't done. She marched to the Drevlian capital, Iskorostan, and demanded tribute, 3 sparrows and 3 pigeons from each house. The people laughed, until Olga tied smoldering embers to the birds' legs. They flew home, igniting the entire city. Survivors were enslaved or slaughtered. But why such brutality? In medieval Kievan Ruses, weakness meant annihilation. Olga's vengeance wasn't just personal, it was a calculated message to every rival tribe. Cross me, and I will erase you. Years later, Olga shocked Europe by converting to Christianity, becoming the first Rus ruler baptized. She built churches, banned pagan rituals, and even outsmarted the Byzantine emperor himself. Yet, her faith didn't erase her past. Olga's duality defies easy labels. To the Drevlians, she was a monster. To Kievan Ruses, she was the shrewd regent who saved her son's throne and laid the groundwork for a Christian empire. Her revenge secured her people's survival, but at what moral cost? Next, we dive into the story of a Byzantine empress who blinded her own son to seize power. Empress Irene. Empress Irene of Byzantium, 752 to 803 AD. The queen who blinded her son. Our final queen shattered glass ceilings and bones to rule one of history's most powerful empires. Meet Empress Irene of Byzantium, a widow turned regent, a mother turned usurper, and the woman who blinded her own son to claim absolute power. Was she a power-hungry monster, or a master strategist in a world where women weren't meant to rule? Let's decode the paradox of Byzantium's most controversial empress. Irene's story begins with tragedy and opportunity. After her husband, Emperor Leo IV, died in 780 AD, she became regent for their 9-year-old son, Constantine VI. But Irene wasn't content to play caretaker. In a realm where women were barred from the throne, she rewrote the rules. Irene's first power move was religious. For decades, Byzantium had been torn apart by iconoclasm, the destruction of religious icons. Irene convened the Second Council of Nicaea, 787 AD, restoring icon veneration. To millions, she was a savior of faith. To her rivals, she was a heretic exploiting religion to legitimize her rule. By 790 AD, Constantine VI came of age, but Irene refused to relinquish power. When he rebelled, she struck back. In 797 AD, she ordered her son captured and blinded, a Byzantine tradition to disqualify rivals from ruling. He died shortly after, leaving no witnesses and no heirs. But why such brutality? In Byzantium, weakness meant death. Irene's actions weren't just personal. They were political survival. A male heir would have ended her reign. A dead son made her the first woman to rule the empire in her own name. Irene's ambition knew no borders. She even proposed marriage to Charlemagne to unite the Eastern and Western Roman empires, a plan that collapsed when her own court overthrew her. Yet, her reign had lasting impacts. She cemented the veneration of icons, shaping Orthodox Christianity forever. She proved women could rule, but at a cost so bloody, no Byzantine woman ever dared follow her example. Irene died in exile, but her legacy splits history. To the Church, she's a saint who defended icons. To historians, she's a cautionary tale of how power corrupts, even a mother's love. Was she a tyrant? Absolutely. But in a world that denied women agency, her ruthlessness rewrote history. And so these 5 queens leave us with a haunting lesson. Power, in the wrong hands, or even the right ones, can become a double-edged sword. Their stories force us to ask, was their brutality a product of ambition, survival, or the ruthless worlds they inherited? History teaches us that leaders are rarely just heroes or villains. They're shaped by faith, fear, and the desperate need to control chaos. Mary Wine's fires, Isabella's Inquisition, Ranavalona's isolation, Olga's vengeance, and Irene's betrayal remind us that power corrupts, but it also reveals. It exposes societal fractures, gender struggles, and the price of progress. So, as we close this chapter, reflect on this. How do we judge leaders who broke norms to make history, but shattered lives in the process? If this dive into the gray areas of power intrigued you, hit like, subscribe, and share which queen's story challenged your views. Let's keep the conversation alive in the comments. Until next time on Speaking History, where we don't just recount the past, we dissect it to understand the present. Stay curious, stay critical, and remember, history's darkest chapters often hold the brightest mirrors to humanity.